to wait in prayer for an answer from you. Teach me, Lord, to wait while hearts are aflame. Let me humble my pride and call on your name. Keep my faith renewed, my eyes on thee. Let me be on this earth what you want me to be. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Teach me, Lord. Teach me, Lord, to wait. Teach me, Lord, to wait right down on my knees till in your own good time you answer my pleas. Teach me not to rely on what others do, but to wait in prayer for an answer from you. Teach me, Lord, to wait while hearts are aflame. Let me humble my pride and call on your name. Keep my faith renewed, my eyes on thee. Let me be on this earth what you want me to be. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Teach me, Lord. Teach me, Lord, to wait. Teach me, Lord, to wait right down on my knees till in your own good time you answer my pleas. Teach me not to rely on what others do, but to wait in prayer for an answer from you. Teach me, Lord, to wait while hearts are aflame. Let me humble my pride and call on your name. Keep my faith renewed, my eyes on thee. Let me be on this strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Teach me, Lord. Teach me, Lord, to wait. Teach me, Lord, to wait right down on my knees till in your own good time you answer my pleas. Teach me not to rely on what others do, but to wait in prayer for an answer from you. Teach me, Lord, to wait while hearts are aflame. Let me humble my pride and call on your name. Keep my faith renewed, my eyes on thee. Let me be on this earth what you want me to be. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Teach me, Lord. Teach me, Lord, to wait. Teach me, Lord, to wait right down on my knees till in your own good time you answer my pleas. Teach me not to rely on what others do, but to wait in prayer for an answer from you. Teach me, Lord, to wait while hearts are aflame. Let me humble my pride and call on your name. Keep my faith renewed, my eyes on thee. Let me be on this earth what you want me to be. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Teach me, Lord. Teach me, Lord, to wait. Teach me, Lord, to wait right down on my knees till in your own good time you to wait in prayer for an answer from you. Teach me, Lord, to wait while hearts are aflame. Let me humble my pride and call on your name. Keep my faith renewed, my eyes on thee. Let me be on this earth what you want me to be. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Teach me, Lord. Teach me, Lord, to wait. Teach me, Lord, to wait right down on my knees till in your own good time you answer my pleas. Teach me not to rely on what others do, but to wait in prayer for an answer from you. Teach me, Lord, to wait while hearts are aflame. Let me humble my pride and call on your name. Keep my faith renewed, my eyes on thee. Let me be on this earth what you want me to be. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Teach me, Lord. Teach me, Lord, to wait. Teach me, Lord, to wait right down on my knees till in your own good time you answer my pleas. Teach me not to rely.
just how bad it was.
Yes, almost to the very end of the book of Genesis, there is nothing in these families that is working right.
No, nothing.
These are the people we celebrate as heroes of faith, and yet when it comes to having harmonious relationships with their own flesh and blood, they just can't get their act together.
Right.
So it's kind of perversely reassuring if we struggled, but those folks were definitely as human as we are.
They were. So on the way over here tonight, I asked the kids, what does the story of Joseph's coat of many colors mean to you? And I'm like, how is that taught in the children's Bible class? Because I always see them come home with the little red coat or the multicolored coat or the cloth or something like that. But taking it again out of that children's Bible class idea, this actually is a kind of a destructive thing within the family dynamic, isn't it? Joseph getting this coat.
Because like you, I have that image of, that you have the paper doll with the rainbow-colored strips on it.
Yeah.
And he's got the arms spread and he's smiling. And so we think that the coat of many colors is a good thing. But really what it symbolizes is Jacob saying to Joseph as the first son he had through Rachel is, I like you better than your brothers.
Right. It's in Genesis chapter 37. You can look at verses 3 and 4, and then also in the first part of verse 11, where we get this story and the idea of the favoritism in a blended family situation. I think we're speaking to a lot of people who are on a second marriage. There's a family, there are children that might be coming from 3 different marriages. The husband's first marriage, the wife's first marriage, and then the current marriage. What does favoritism do when a parent shows favoritism? What does that do to cause family strife?
Well, I think that we see it very plainly here in 37, 3 and 4. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than his other sons because Joseph was a son born to him in his old age, and he made a robe of many colors for him. And right there is where the Bible class version stops. And then we get to verse 4. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not bring themselves to speak peaceably to him. And so Jacob's foolishness and continuing this pattern of dysfunctional behavior that he's learned from his family, this is something that is causing the same cycle over and over again. And I don't think that the author of Genesis is exaggerating here when he says that this provokes hatred.
Right.
Because when you have a family where strife is going on, a lot of the time there can be just this small thing that is a symbol that people will cling to and resent for years or decades.
Yeah, in the blended situation, talking to just, this is basically just advice giving, because I grew up in that kind of situation. As hard as it may be to favor your own children over your stepchildren, you cannot do that. You cannot show favoritism. You as an adult have entered into this arrangement, and you've got to recognize that showing any kind of favoritism is going to stir up strife among the children. It's going to perpetuate strife among the married couple, because you're going to argue about the children more if we're going to favor one over the other. Jacob does a great disservice to the harmony within his family.
He really does. And even though we're really focusing on the blended aspect here, it's worth observing that this is something that can happen in your Ozzie and Harriet nuclear family,
right,
where there are no half-siblings or previous marriages or anything like that. And it's just a situation where somebody is foolish and starts preferring one of their kids.
Right.
And that's sowing a bunch of weeds in the garden. It's not going to go well.
That's right. So Jacob does his damage, but Joseph kind of does his damage too, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
How does Joseph stir up strife with his own brothers and within the family?
I think we see it just in verse 5 of Genesis 37. And Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. There we were, binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly my sheaf stood up, and your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. Are you really going to reign over us?" His brothers asked him. "Are you really going to rule us?" So they hated him even more because of his dream and what he said.
Now, lift that out of the prophetic sense that's going on here. I recognize that the story of Joseph is one where we're seeing God work out salvation history. So let's kind of pick out the prophetic dream aspect and just look at the braggadocious idea of how Joseph is really kind of instigating this here just a little bit.
Yes, that Joseph has kind of this really positive reputation among Christians. I don't really see this as very positive behavior. You know, it's one thing to have a dream.
Yeah.
It's another to take this dream and go with it to people in your family when you know you already have a bad relationship with them. And if you thought it would be very easy for you to realize this is only going to make things worse, and then you promptly proceed to use the dream to make things worse.
Right. I mean, he's not thinking correctly. I mean, if you look at verse 2, look how old he is. How many of y'all were thinking correctly at 17 years old? Anybody? Show hands.
Yeah.
I got to look around the lights. I don't see any hands yet. Jeremy, were you thinking right at 17? Oh. Your mama's right there. You better watch out. Yeah, he's a teenager, and he's doing teenager things. So what advice? And the people in the audience, y'all have my cell phone number. Text me something here. Those of you online who are watching us through Facebook, I'm monitoring the comments. Give me a comment. Give me some feedback. What advice would you give a teenager who's living in a blended home situation like this? What kind of advice would you give them on seeking to overcome family strife? So they come to you, they say, hey, look, home ain't no good. That's a double negative, so I mean, I guess it was good.
We're
home
real bad.
is not good. There we go. Home is not good. I don't, mom and dad don't get me. I can't stand my brothers. And then there's these other women that are always hanging around. What advice would you give them? So give me some of that feedback, and we'll turn back to the audience here in just a moment. Okay, so the narrative then flash forwards almost 15 years, at least we're going to, as we discuss this. You get to chapter 41, and you find Joseph has been sold into slavery by his brothers.
Yes.
Talking about stirring up strife. I would have sold my sisters, but I don't know. It wasn't very good. Yeah, they sell his brother. They sell him into slavery. Then we find him in prison, and because he got falsely accused of sexual harassment, he gets forgotten in prison, has some more dreams, interprets some dreams, and then lo and behold, he goes before Pharaoh, says there's going to be a famine, and Pharaoh makes him vice Pharaoh.
Yes, dude goes from the outhouse to the penthouse.
That's right. That's right. He gets married. Story keeps progressing, and he has 2 children. And we find their names in Genesis chapter 41. If y'all online, you might turn to your Bibles. If you're here in the audience, turn to Genesis chapter 41, and we're going to see his children's names. Look at verses. Matt, you want to read this? It's verses 51 and 52.
Sure.
Because I know I'll mispronounce the names. You'll get it right.
Joseph.
I shouldn't.
Well, the scary ones are in verse 50, so
Yeah.
you've spared me. But Joseph named the firstborn Manasseh and said, God has made me forget all my hardship and my whole family. And the second son he named Ephraim and said, God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction.
Right. So go back and look at Manasseh. God has made me forget all my hardships and all my father's house. And then that second one is he's giving me something to be productive with. From those 2 names, because in the Old Testament, particularly in the Old Testament, names have meaning. They really represent current situations or a state of mind that somebody is in when the child is born. So what kind of state of mind do you see Joseph in? Past being, he's grown now. He's a grown man now. He's 30 years old. Past this adolescent and past being at home with all that dysfunction. Well, what do you see him doing?
This is somebody who, you would think he would have every reason to reach back into the past and to hold on to the wrongs that have been done to him. I mean, his brothers literally sold him into slavery.
Yes.
So, that one would definitely be a black mark against your brothers in a lot of people's minds.
Right.
And so, you've probably known, as I have, people who just had resentment about something that happened to them when they were children. And they build their lives around that. They go to the grave clinging to that resentment.
Right.
And yet that's exactly the opposite of what we see Joseph doing. Because this is somebody who says, I'm going to turn my back on what they did. I'm going to forget about that. And I'm going to focus on the life that I have now. And I'm going to live where I am.
And there's one key here that I think, I actually have it underlined. Joseph called the name of his firstborn Manasseh, for he said, God has made me forget. Then look at verse 52. He called the second one Ephraim, for God has made me. This isn't just that he's blocking it out in his mind. It's that he has turned to God, and God is helping him move past it, to not hold on to it. I put out on, and I just got a text message that I guess I need to repeat. I won't repeat her name. I won't to. Someone anonymous has asked, could you please repeat the question? So the question is, if a teen came to you for a difficult home, what advice would you give them on how to bring peace into the home? How not to instigate more strife? You got that, Jayla? That's the question. So I actually got one answer. Connie says, I'll tell teenage students to get a good education and build a better life for themselves. And that actually kind of moves right in with what we're talking about, because we're talking about him moving on here, about him, with God's help, not building his life around what he endured, but building a life based on where God's put him right then and there to do the good that God's given him.
Yes, he is not somebody who is trapped in the past. And I think you're right in emphasizing the vital role that God plays in the lives of those who are determined to escape a troubled past.
Right. So kind of speak to the folks who are watching, whether here or online. What advice would you give them about moving on past this situation, past a dysfunctional childhood or strife in the home?
This is sort of a difficult position for me to put myself in, because you hear about those people who have like the mythical white picket fence upbringing.
Right.
That was me.
Yeah.
But
But you're somebody that has to be able to see past. We are people who have to see past our own experiences.
Yes.
Because people come to us all the time. As soon as somebody finds out you're a preacher, two things are going to happen. You're always asked to lead the prayer, and people are always going to come to you for Bible advice. So you understand, don't you? Yeah, I mean, people are always going to come to you for Bible advice, and I get that a lot. So we have to actually move past our experiences, and it makes it difficult at times.
And what I would say there is, first of all, it just takes determination.
Yeah.
That it's just, you have to recognize that bitterness and a resentment as a temptation the same way that, lust is a temptation.
Right.
Or, your drinking problem is a temptation. And it can be just as persistent and just as constantly there in the background, just waiting for a weak moment where it can pounce on you.
Right.
And so it's that same sort of struggle, because it may even be correct to say that there are people who get addicted to that bitterness and resentment. That's the kind of hold that it has on them.
Right. And I put this question out earlier this week, asking for some feedback. And one of the things that I got back, and I thought was so interesting, is one person said, don't be ashamed to share your experience, to share your story, even to get some professional counseling.
Yes.
But, and this was the second part, don't make talking about it your life.
Yes.
So by that, it's, you know what, if this is your situation, this is how you grew up, this is what you've struggled with, get some good godly friends to talk to about it. Get wise advice. Get some professional counseling if that's the area you need to go. But don't make your life talking about it, have determination that this is to help me get past it, to move on. And as another brother said in that same comment thread, he related, he grew up in a very difficult home. I've heard him talk about it. And he said, what got me past it was I had to realize that that's not who I was. I wasn't what my family was.
Right.
I could be my own man.
Yes.
And then go and live it. And as you said at the very beginning, break that cycle. And he did. He has
and
very
you have
successfully
to.
done that.
And I think you have to do it one day at a time, too.
Right.
I've probably told this story before, but I had a good friend in Illinois who was a recovering alcoholic and just dragged himself back out of the pit, again, with God's help. But he said the way that he did that was every morning, without fail, he would get up and say to himself, there may be some day that I return to drinking, but today is not going to be the day.
Yeah, today's not the day.
And likewise, if you are in that position, it may be that you say, I've got all this resentment that I'm grappling with, and it may be that there is some day when all that comes spilling out of me again, but today is not going to be the day.
That's right. Don texted me and said, don't let current strife define you as who you will be as an adult. And that is so true. Whatever you might be going through right now, if you're a teen, I was going to say a tween, but I meant if you're a tween, you're a teen, you're in your 20s. I'll kind of get it all there. Whatever's going on at home is not who you are. You are your own person that God has created you to be. You can move past all that. It might be you got to go all the way to Egypt to get away from it. But we got to get away from it.
And it is always possible that you can think of the worst background imaginable, and there is somebody who has clawed their way up out of that.
Right.
So somebody has shown that it's doable, so no one
That's
needs
right.
to lose hope.
That's right. Margaret says, it will only hurt you to hold on to mistreatments. That is so true. So very true. Okay, let's move on to another scene in Joseph's life. So he's vice pharaoh. He is heading up famine relief. Basically, they have gathered up all the property, all the money, everything that any of the free citizens had owned. That's one of the interesting things about the famine. It was a free society. And then after the famine, it's no longer a free society because they sell themselves to the Pharaoh.
Yes.
By the end. So it's no longer a free society. And Joseph's brothers show up because the famine is not just in Egypt. It's all the way up in Canaan as well. And so they've had to come down and get that. Joseph forgives them. Isn't that just, to me, that's an amazing part of this story. Here's a guy that was sold into slavery by his brothers. Here's a guy who was hated by these guys because they wanted to kill him. He forgives them.
He does, although I think it is fair to say that he does so ultimately.
Right.
Because there's kind of this complicated series of exchanges with his brothers.
And it's the longest part of the story. Look at it chapter-wise. It's chapters 42, 43, 44, and 45. 4 long chapters. Details how they come about with this forgiveness and this reconciliation. So kind of give me some of the keys of how he reconciled or the best way to reconcile a family that has been torn apart by strife.
I think, first of all, it's worth noting that even though they don't recognize him, he recognizes them.
Right.
And so, at this point, if he is determined to take revenge, then guess who can end up in the same prison where he himself spent 2 years.
Right.
But he doesn't do that.
Right.
Instead, he starts putting them through a series of tests to see what they're going to do.
Right. And ultimately, they pass the test.
They do.
They show themselves to be redeemed. One person that, Carolyn said, forgiveness is a journey. And I think that's true.
Yes.
And we see that journey playing out over these chapters. And he does take that trip with them, with his brothers, doesn't he?
He does. because ultimately he recognizes that they're not the same people anymore who
Right.
would take an inconvenient brother and sell him into slavery.
Right.
And once he realizes that, that's when he's willing to reconcile. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Right.
Because it is one thing to forgive somebody, it is one thing to love somebody, it is another thing to trust somebody.
That's right. So I was kind of thinking about Jesus' teaching on forgiveness. And, that there's two sides to that forgiveness coin in Jesus' teaching. One side is if you know someone has something against you, go to them. Tell them you're sorry so they can forgive you. That's Matthew chapter 5. In Matthew chapter 18, Jesus says, if somebody has some wrong against you, you go to them so that you can initiate that process and journey of forgiveness, to use the term that's already been thrown
And the brothers didn't know that they had to do that,
Yeah,
or could do that, because they thought Joseph
they
was
didn't.
dead.
That's right. They didn't know it was just, but he did it. Even when they didn't know it was him.
He
He's
gives
moving
them
there.
an opportunity.
That's right.
And I think we see the guilt in 42:21 when Joseph is accusing them of being spies and imprisoning Simeon and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
And then verse 21 says, obviously we're being punished for what we did to our brother. We saw his deep distress when he pleaded with us, but we would not listen. This is why this trouble has come to us.
Right.
And so part of what makes this reconciliation possible is that these are people who are willing to acknowledge their error.
That's right. Okay, I think we need to stop here for just a minute and look at a barrier that occurs when people need to reconcile, or at least the need to go down that journey of forgiveness. Thank you for giving me that term. That's a good one. They say something like, but I don't want to have anything else to do with them. Or the relationship will never be the same. Or I just don't want to reconcile with them. I think it's wrong for us to think that forgiveness means the relationship has to go back to the way it was. It will never go back to the way it was. It could be worse. It could be better than it was. We've been through a trial together. But to say that reconciliation has to occur and we all have to go back to being friends and eating dinner with each other all the time, that is no reason to withhold forgiveness, and that is no reason to withhold attempting to reconcile this difference that we have with each other.
And part of that, too, is that this is the journey of forgiveness thing again.
Yeah.
That if you're saying, well, I don't want to reconcile with them because I don't want to be in this close relationship with them again right now,
Right.
that's because you are anticipating the last step of the journey at the first.
Right. That's right. And even, again, go back and read the story of his interaction with his brothers. You never wanted that to go back to the way it was. It was already a relationship of hate. It could only get better. And it never goes back to, it seems to me, it never goes back to their having dinner together on Sunday afternoons after church. There seems to still be a level of conflict even at the end. We'll kind of explore that in just a minute. So don't let, and that's my word to those who are watching and who are here listening tonight. Sometimes that's a barrier. This idea of I don't want to reconcile with them because I don't want to be friends anymore. I don't want to acknowledge them as my family. Don't let that be a barrier, because relationships don't have to go back to the way they were. They could be better, or they could just not be existent. But what we don't want is hanging over our head this idea that we violated the Lord's teaching because we refused to either extend forgiveness or to seek forgiveness.
Just so. And I think even more fundamentally, when we consider all of the offenses that we have committed against God, yet what we see in God's character, what we see in Jesus' character, is that they continually seek to forgive us, and they continually seek reconciliation with us.
Right.
And if we are truly imitating Jesus, then the desire to seek forgiveness and reconciliation needs to be something that we perfect.
That's right. So don't let me forget. don't let me forget. I got a long text here that
Boy, did you
I
ever.
think will be a perfect closer. If I forget, you wave your hand, okay? Not you, Ben. Okay, I got a couple of texts here I need to read. Ray says, you have to wonder if Joseph was forced to deal with his own actions as an agitator that provoked his brother's actions back when, before he forgave his brothers. So basically, is Joseph just wondering, did I actually do right? Did I do wrong by kind of rubbing it in their face that I'm chosen by God for this great thing? Probably did have to deal with that.
And I think that might be that we can even see in the story a point at which he does that. Because if you recall, when he has his vision in the prison, even after that, it is still 2 more years
Right.
before he is released.
Right.
And so maybe part of the reason why that happens is because God is saying to Joseph, yes, you have these dreams, yes, you have these visions, but this is no reason to exalt yourself.
Right. And that's a good thing to note. As we're seeking to resolve family strife, we need to acknowledge our own shortcomings and clean up our own side of the street as we're going down this journey of forgiveness, and acknowledge our role in the strife. And
Yes.
I think that's a good point.
I think we see that Joseph has, because he treats his brothers better when he is, as you say, the vice pharaoh of Egypt,
Right.
than he did when he was, pipsqueak little tattletale. That he is a much higher position, yet his behavior is much better.
Right. Ben says, ultimately, I believe the spur of Joseph's forgiveness is his ability to see the big picture and understand in the grand scheme of things how God used the situation for good far beyond just Joseph's own life. He cites Genesis 45:5. We do well to strive for this perspective. Can you turn over there and read that for us real quick?
I sure can. I'll start with verse 4. This is Joseph's big reveal moment. I'll start with verse 3, actually, just because it's interesting what the initial reaction is. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still living? But they could not answer him because they were terrified in his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, please come near me. And they came near. I am Joseph, your brother, he said, the one you sold into Egypt. And now don't be grieved or angry with yourselves for selling me here, because God sent me ahead of you to preserve life.
That's a hard thing, I think, for us to grasp sometimes. How can good come from something bad? How can something good in my life come from a bad situation in the past? And I think it takes a very deep faith to be able to see that, and perspective. Perhaps a longer perspective than we care to grasp sometimes.
I think that's the case. But the truth is that whenever we face a trial, whether it's a trial with our families or a trial in some other part of our lives,
Right.
that trial is going to change us. But the change that it causes in us is up to us.
Right.
That you can either be somebody who is crushed by the trial or embittered by the trial, or you can be somebody who is taught humility and compassion and selflessness by the trial.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
And-
I need to catch one more right over here from Jason. Unwilling to reconcile often is pride. I like that, but I like your second one. Or fear of being hurt again. And that is so true. That is so true.
And I think we see Joseph being careful with that last one, that he wants to make sure before he reveals himself to his brothers that these are people who are going to treat him well.
Right. That's right.
And so only when they have established themselves is he willing to make himself vulnerable to them again.
That's right.
And I think that's sound wisdom.
Okay, let's, how much time we got? I don't have my glasses on. Can
10
we do
minutes.
that? 10 minutes, okay. we did a light check, and it was really bad on the glasses, so I ditched them. Let's go to the last scene of Joseph's life as we have it. This will be Genesis chapter 49, if y'all want to be turning in your Bibles. verses 28 through chapter 50 and verse 21. This is the death of Jacob the father, the patriarch. What happens when Jacob dies? What do the brothers do, Matt?
The brothers are once again very frightened about what is going to happen.
Yeah, that's verses 15 through 21 of chapter 50, if you need that citation. It seems to me like they I don't know if they're being truthful or if they're just making it up.
I don't know either.
Yeah, I could come down both ways on that. And
I think probably they made it up. Because,
I feel that way.
If Jacob, because, well, for those of you who haven't read it, I'll just summarize.
Summarize it
that
for us.
basically when Jacob dies, they're terrified that now Joseph is going to get his revenge. And so they come to Joseph with this story about how Jacob, before he died, he's conveniently unavailable now.
Yes.
Before he died, he told them to say to Joseph, please forgive them. And I think that is awfully convenient. If Jacob had wanted to say that, why wouldn't he just go up to Joseph and say, hey, boy, forgive him?
That's right. That's right.
But so we have these people who are scared enough that they're lying, which is kind of a family trait all the way through this.
Right. Old wounds have been opened now that the patriarch is dead. How many times have we seen that in families? When the parent dies, the last parent dies, or the parent is ailing, and the decision about who's going to care for the parent, who's going to pay for the nursing home, who's going to pay for the in-home care, who's going to take on the responsibility. Old wounds get opened up when the siblings have to come together in order to now care for the one who has always cared for them.
Absolutely, and we've all heard stories or possibly even seen ourselves about those just absolutely hideous funerals where you have, the patriarch or the matriarch who has died, and then there are people in the funeral home, and they are as far away as they possibly can be from one another and still be in the same room.
Right.
Because their relationship with each other is so bad.
Right. If anybody's had that experience where the ailing health or the death of a parent caused a lot of friction, hit me up real quick with a text. Just some quick details on why you think that happened. Why is it that stress of that kind of situation really tears at the fabric of the bond that holds families together, holds children together? I think we see that here in Joseph's life. We certainly have seen it in our own lives where that happens. What can we do to preserve that? I almost said the word bond of peace. Maybe a semblance of peace, or at least preserve peace while we are all going through this very stressful situation. Take it away.
I would say, first of all, recognize that when you are in that situation, it is a potentially explosive situation.
Right.
Because precisely as you said, it is a stressful time. And it is when we are stressed that filter starts to degrade a little bit, that mask starts to slip, and sometimes you can let things out that you otherwise would not have let out. Mm-hmm. And it is interesting that what is revealed here in Genesis 50 is just stark fear.
Right.
That they have been living in Goshen all this time and making nice with Joseph. But this whole time they've been terrified that he's going to kill him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Family strife can run really deep. And for the Christian family, it can really mar our witness to the power of the gospel and the forgiveness and the grace and the mercy that we've received through Jesus. And so look at your own families. Look at where you're at as a parent. Look at where you're at as a child. Look at where you're at as a sibling. And really ask yourself, what are you doing to lower the level of strife? What are you doing to bring about peace in the family? What are you doing to honor your parents as best you can? To be the kind of children that they would want you to be, Are you doing right by your own children in the way you parent them?
And no matter how godly and good the family is, there are always going to be questions like this. There are always going to be little spots in those relationships where there can be trouble.
That's right. That's right. Okay. We've been talking about overcoming family strife. We've looked at it from several different situations from the life of Joseph. The dynamic of a blended family. We've looked at bad parenting with favoritism that causes strife, and how to not be a dumb teenager and cause strife within the family. We've looked at how he forgave and how he forgot and got over his issues that he grew up with, and kind of how he deals with his brothers. We didn't mention that. We actually mentioned his brothers being fearful, but what he does is he calms them and reassures them.
Yes,
in chapter 15.
He basically repeats the same thing in verse 19.
That's right.
Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You planned evil against me. God planned it for good to bring about the present result, the survival of many people.
That's right.
Therefore, don't be afraid. I will take care of you and your children.
That's right.
That this is somebody who recognizes that the wrong that was done to him made him who he was.
He, you know what just popped in my mind? He is going to treat them the way he wants to be treated, or the way he wanted to be treated. He will care for them, even though they sold him into slavery.
Yes.
And I think, you know what, if we can encapsulate any one concept as we kind of close this out on overcoming family strife, seek to have peace, seek to lower the strife, whatever situation you're in, and do it by just treating people the way you want to be treated.
That's it. And think less about your pain and more about how you can ease theirs.
That's right. And always, as Joseph always did, he always brought God into the situation. Whether he's interpreting the prayer, whether he's naming his children, whether he is reconciling and forgiving his brothers, he always said God was always there. Okay, I need to close out with this text right here. Tim says, my advice is to look at the Word and its advice and the timeless stories like Joseph's to keep hope alive. Hey, this story is written for our learning. Through the pages of the Word that we might have hope.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
thank you for saying that, Tim. In it, you'll find that it's God you want to please and that he shows you the ultimate form of favoritism. Give yourself to him and you are his. Work as if you are pleasing him, and it won't matter whether anyone recognizes you or not. The story of Cinderella isn't a bad DVD to keep on hand either. Just keep in mind that in reality, it is Jesus who is our Prince. Great words to end on. Got anything else?
I'm good, brother.
Thank you all for joining us online, and those of you that joined us in person. I hope that everything went well technologically, and if Chris will give me the thumbs up for tonight or tomorrow. Well, next week we hope to be able to incorporate the roaming camera and actually take y'all's questions and comments live with the microphone and with the camera and put you out there for the world to see. If you ever wanted a comment killer, that's it.
Yes.
That's it.
You can tell who intends to comment because they show up dressed really nicely.
Yes. That'd be right. Thank you all again for joining us. If you're in the Columbia area, we'd love to have you here at the Jackson Heights Church of Christ. We meet on Sunday mornings for Bible class at 9:15.
That's right.
And then 10:15 for our assembly, Sunday nights at 5 o'clock, and Wednesday nights either live or online at 7 o'clock.
All of these are live streams, so
That's
you
right.
can catch any of them.
Thank you very much, and God bless you.
He is able, more than able, to accomplish what concerns me.